How many times am I gonna say vibes? Oh my god, take a shot every time I say vibes. You might die, actually, don't do that. It's 11:40 at night right now. NaNoWriMo starts in 20 minutes. Can you hear my family fighting outside? Why are they outside at midnight? I'm confused. Why am I filming a video at midnight? Anyways, so I filmed this video a while ago and I talked all about my goals for NaNoWriMo and how I start my projects. It was a very disorganized video. And I think that's like the main reason why I didn't upload it. Also just because I looked ugly and I was like, no one wants to see this. So we're doing a take two. Thought I would show you just my plan. Did I explain why I'm in my bed? Because I had a headache. I can't get up right now. This is probably gonna give me another headache because this light is so bright. Starting a draft, because I know that is probably why like majority of the people are here. Like, what do you do to start a draft? I always start with just the vibes of the story. People always ask me like, how do you come up with ideas? And I'm like, they just come to me. Like, I take a lot of inspiration from music and other books that I read and also quotes I see on Twitter. No, Twitter doesn't inspire me, but it's just, you know how some people will post tropes and quotes. I mostly get inspired by tropes. Pinterest, like a lot of pictures and art inspires me, I think, the most out of everything. Like, art is like my number one inspo. A lot of times it's mostly art of characters, some kind of being, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool, I want to write a story about them. Like, I start asking myself, like, what are they doing in this picture? Why do they look like this if they're not like a human being but some kind of like supernatural being? I'm like, what kind of being are they? I just get so inspired and I kind of start spiraling from there. I ask myself those questions like, okay, who are they? Where are they? You know, to start getting into more world building. I ask like, what do they want? That's like how you get more to the story and past the characters is like, what do they want? Because that, I think, is what drives the story, is the characters' motivations and why they're doing what they do, why they make certain choices, why their actions are the way that they are. This is like a really intimate setting now that I'm thinking about it. I'm like in my pajamas in bed. Very first thing I start with is the vibes of the book. I go on Pinterest for that. Once I kind of have an idea of what I want to write, I'll write it in my notes like immediately. I'll try and like flesh out as much of it as I can on my own, like without Pinterest or without doing any type of research. I'll just put it in my notes. For example, for my NaNoWriMo story, I was just like, I want to write about fairies. So I titled it in my notes just New Evil Fairy Whip or Work in Progress, whatever. I just wrote down as much as I knew about it, kind of like the vibe. How many times am I gonna say vibes? Oh my god, take a shot every time I say vibes. You might die, actually, don't do that. I usually don't know the plot right away. I usually just know the characters and the world. And by world, like if there's magic, I don't know. So for this story, I just wrote down, okay, what do I know so far? Like, what do I want this story to be about? It's like, I literally wrote, I don't know. I just know that I want to have some fairies doing crazy, wicked things. And I want all of my characters to not be good. Maybe they're bad. Maybe they're just morally gray. I don't know. I wanted something to do with spying and betrayals, and I knew that I wanted it to be sapphic, but also that I wanted them to have multiple love interests, because I knew also that I wanted this to be a series. So I just wrote down like the little things. I was like, okay, fairies, I want them to be evil. I want them to be completely unhinged. I want them to have like no boundaries. Lots of spying and lots of sneaking around and just really high stakes. So like someone who's really dangerous, like someone working for someone who's really dangerous. And that's how I came up with the idea of there being a queen that everyone fears. It's a long story. I don't really want to talk about what my story is about because I'm not there yet. I don't want that judgment. Not that you guys will judge me, but just that you know what I mean? Look who just got here. Darcy, look. She doesn't care. Okay, what was I talking about? Oh, step one, get the general vibes of the story to figure out like a general sense of who my character would be and what kind of world they're living in and like what's going on. And I just knew I wanted it to be really dark. I want darkness. Next step 2, not quite research, but this is what I like to call the most fun part, because it's when you're just gonna mess around, just go to Pinterest and just look up stuff and just get really, really inspired so you can figure out even more specifically what you want to write about. So for me, I would just go on Pinterest, I looked up fairies, and then that brought me to the celiac core and the unceliac core, and I was really interested in the unceliac core because I was like, oh, they're so evil, which is exactly what I wanted, which interestingly enough, the majority of my story does not take place in the unceliac core. Yeah, so I was like learning about that, and kind of when I got to the unceliac core versus the celiac core, I was like, okay, I should probably do more research, because at this point I was like, there are different types of fairies, like I could develop my own, you know, but I was definitely not interested in the way that Sarah J. Maas portrays her fairies, just because I was like, that's not the kind that I see myself writing. I feel like her fairies are barely fairies. They're literally just people with pointed ears and big dicks, and they can smell really well. I don't know, but she's resting her head on my bookshelf. Ugh, she's so weird. Like, I don't know why she's sleeping next to her bed and not on it. She just does what she wants, you know? I don't want to do Sarah J. Maas fairies. So step 2, Pinterest, the fun part, my most favorite part, because you just get to go around. There's no pressure. Anything goes. You just save a bunch of pictures that really speak to you and your story. And that's when you establish exactly what it is you want to write about. Step 2 is the fun Pinterest research. I think by the end of this, for me, I have a bigger brainstorm. I have more of an idea of the plot, more of an idea of my characters, because I've gotten so much inspiration. And then after this, I did a little bit more research. So I guess I would say step 3 is research if you don't really know the world that you're writing about. So for me, like, I've never written fairies before. I've read a lot of fairy stories, but I only know like bits and pieces here and there, and I wasn't sure how much of the actual mythology or lore or whatever that I wanted to include in my story. I got enough research that made me feel like I could develop my own world, but still adhere to most of the classic fae mythology. Research for me was important. Not everyone has to do research. I remember for a dragon book, I did not do a lot of research. The only research I really did was like looking up dragons, so I'm describing them properly. When I was getting a bit more inspired by US history and colonialism and, you know, racism, that's when I did a little bit more research. But for the most part, I just like made everything up. Don't really have time to do the most right now because NaNoWriMo actually technically is starting in 2 minutes. So after I finish that little bit of research, this is a mistake I made in the past, but usually I'll just go straight into outlining. But I figured out that it's easier to develop the characters in the world first, because those elements bring up a lot of things that you need to include in the story. So if you outline first and you don't have your world established and you don't have your character established and their backstory, I feel like their backstory really tells you a lot about them and what they want and why they want it. So I think backstory is pretty important to know going in so that you can fully develop your character's motive, which is like the most important part of the story. Definitely, I would recommend at least knowing the basic stuff about your character, like the most important stuff about them. That makes sense. You don't need to know like their favorite color, if anything tragic happened to them in the past, because that could really shape them into the character that they are now, and that could really tell you a lot about why they're going after whatever it is they're going after in the story. Same with the world. If you have like magic or something in your story, then it's really important to do world building. And if there are certain enemies in the story, then it would be important to do world building to know like where the enemies come from, why they're acting a certain way, why the kingdom is a certain way, why there are certain rules that maybe prevent your characters from getting to what they're trying to achieve in the story. So world building, you might think like, oh, I just need to know a little bit, but it actually influences a lot of the story. And especially if you want to make sure you're writing stuff that is necessary to the story and not just extra filler stuff, it's really important to know the world that your story is taking place in. So this is a mistake that I've made in the past where I've kind of just jumped into outlining and I wrote a lot of stuff that was not necessary for the story. Sorry, my friend is texting me. It's Kath, by the way. She's probably gonna watch this video. But yeah, Kath was texting me as I was reading it. What was I saying? Kath, you distracted me. At this point, I'm super excited to jump into outlining because I really just want to be immersed in the world, but it's really important to know the world and the characters so that what you are putting in your story makes sense. Because you don't want to like draft an entire draft and then you are like, the atmosphere is weird, and you develop the world and you're like, well, this whole plot point can't happen because the magic system doesn't work this way, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So like, it's important to have those things established. Once you have the world established and your characters established, that I think is a good time to start outlining. I can't believe I initially was going to start this video and be like, oh, I start with an outline. That's literally a lie. Like, that's just not true. So after you have your most important things established. Oh, also, by the way, disclaimer, I think that my instructions really depend on what kind of story you're writing. I know for a contemporary novel that takes place now, in the world that we live in now, you probably would not have to do like any world building at all. I just felt a spark of excitement because NaNoWriMo is officially right now. Anyway, pretty much that's it. Then you start outlining. People have asked me what my outlining process is. It's really just, I go chapter by chapter, scene by scene. So that's why my outlines are so long. They usually end up being around like 40 to 50 chapters. It kind of depends. I guess I'll show you. And I don't know if I can show you. I could put a screenshot, I guess. I just put Latin text. I put it in French so you guys, some of you probably speak French. So I just do chapter 1 and then I do bullet points, and then each bullet point is a moment. I don't know. There's no like actual structure to it. So for example, for Dragon Book, I'd say like, okay, Tanisa is doing this, and I'll just put the dialogue. I obviously don't do dialogue tags, but I'll just put like literally what's going on in the scene, dialogue by dialogue. Sometimes I'm lazy. It's starting to not feel like sometimes, it's starting to feel like all the time. Let me like give an example. What I'm saying is not making sense. This is a really short chapter. It's not really supposed to be that short. They're usually longer like this. So this is chapter 1, and you can see it's really helpful because on Google Docs, you can see like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So you can just click on that. It's like a page long. They're not usually that long, I don't think. Chapter 2 is shorter. I mean, that's also like a page. See, chapter 3 is really short. You can't even see what I'm doing. But chapter 3, and then the comparison, chapter 1, chapter 2. Don't look too closely. It's a secret. I'm kidding. I mean, it is, but who cares? An example of like how into detail I go for each chapter. Okay, so for example, here it's like, Kara looks very pale and nauseated. I won't just write down what's going on, but I'll also put people's emotions and their reactions because I don't know, in my head, oh my god, you guys, it's so stupid. Sometimes when I explain things out loud, I hear how crazy it sounds. Like I was about to say that sometimes, I need to write down exactly the emotions the character is feeling in the scene because what if I forget later? Which is so, like, why would I forget? Why would I forget? Like this character's literally being like harassed. Why would I forget that she would react negatively to that? I'm not sure. I write down like every little detail. I'm like, okay, she's blushing. Pieces of dialogue that I think are important. I just wanted to give you an idea of how in depth I go. I don't just do they fly here on their dragons and they are attacked. Like it's not like that. It's like I break down everything. I'm like, they're flying on the dragons and Kara's really nervous because she's scared of her dragon. Tanisa's really excited because she loves her dragon. You know, flying with her dragon makes her really happy. Like I go from talking about fairies to talking about dragons. Like they're not the same project, in case you're wondering. So yeah, I would explain like everything from like how they're feeling when they're flying and then also what happens when they land. So like they get attacked. It wouldn't just be they get attacked, but it would be they land and then they're talking. I'd write down what they talk about, you know, the dialogue, and then I'd write down the interruption of, you know, a potential antagonist coming in and like talking to them, threatening them. I'd write down his words. I'd write down how they're feeling. I'd write down the weather because for some reason the weather is gonna change. This is why my outlines, how long is this? This is why my outline is 44 pages. It's very in depth. I write down everything just so that when it comes to drafting, I don't have to sit here and think about every direction that the story could go in because it's already pretty laid out for me. I think a lot of people wonder, don't you feel constricted? So I have control problems and I get really paranoid and I get nervous about certain directions that my story could take. That's why outlining is very important to me. I used to just write down whatever came to my mind and be like, hey, yes, this is a good direction that the story could go in. But now it's more like I don't want to have to do a rewrite. So I get scared that if it's not the right direction, I'm gonna have to rewrite the whole thing. So I sit there and I think about it for a really long time. And that's why outlining takes me a really long time now. I used to be able to do it in like a day or like a week. And now I will be outlining for like a month. I don't feel constricted because I feel like I've thought really hard about the decisions that I put into my outline, and I don't feel like there's another way for it to go, if that makes sense. So I don't feel constricted in that moment. There are some scenes in the outline that I am not sure of. So I'll be like, for instance, on a romance note, there's a scene where I'm like, should they kiss? Should they not kiss? In my head, I'm like, this feels like they should kiss. But then I'm like, well, why don't I wait till I actually get to that scene when I'm writing it? And then if it feels like, yes, they should fucking kiss, then they're gonna kiss. I don't know why I said fucking like that. Was really aggressive. When I get to a scene and if something in my outline doesn't feel right in the moment, I'm not gonna be like, no, it's an outline, I have to do it. It's not like that. And that's why I think also why I don't feel constricted, because I know that it could change. But because I'm so particular about everything that goes into my outline, I know that I've already considered every option that I wanted to take or that I thought could work in this scene. And I've already chosen the scene that I think works best. That's why it's in the outline. And that's why when I get to writing it, I don't feel constricted, because I know I've already tried out the other options. To answer that question, it was a really long-winded answer. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's pretty much it. People asked about the drafting process. I thought I would talk more about that when I actually start drafting for NaNoWriMo. So happy NaNoWriMo. It is officially NaNoWriMo right now. It's past midnight. And yeah, I haven't actually finished my outline. Like I said, I'm having a really hard time with this outline. I think it's because I know the direction that the story needs to go in. For this, I know the ending for like the first 5 books. So I'm like, I have to be very meticulous about this outline, because I can't have them doing one thing that's gonna fuck up where they're supposed to end up. It's a little stressful. I'm going to show you the vlog clips. If you want to see those, stay to the end of the video. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you. And if you're doing NaNoWriMo, let me know. My NaNoWriMo username is Hayley14. You should add me. Help keep each other accountable. Make sure we're writing. So yeah, let's become writing buddies. And let me know if this video was helpful. Let me know if you want more like these in the future. I'm going to be posting a NaNoWriMo vlog. Get this? Every Sunday in November, so stay tuned. This weekend's been kind of shitty, but because of my friends, it's been great. So I'm really grateful for them. I'm also really grateful for you guys for watching my videos and sticking with me even when I am inconsistent and do not post when I'm supposed to. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to like this video and subscribe. I'll see you next time for my next video. Here are the vlog clips from my failed vlog this week. And also, happy NaNoWriMo. I wish you all the best of luck if you're drafting. Yeah, I'm excited. We're all gonna do amazing. I believe in you. I believe in us. Let's do this. Okay, bye. Oh, look cute. Like when I search her name, it doesn't even come up. Guys, I just want to show you how much of a sheep my dog is. Darcy. Can you find me? Hello? Sometimes it takes her a minute to find me. Darcy. But I know Kath wants to see Darcy. Here she is. Darcy, say hi. You see how she's sitting next to her bed? Like, I dragged that big ass thing up here for her, and she's like, no, I'd rather lay on the floor. But she's curled up in a little ball.